April 15th, 2025. Well, it's tax day, I guess, although I hope everybody's got their return in and everything, or nobody got the refund if they have one coming. But what I want to get into this time is get away from some of the political, economic topics we've been focused on lately and discuss the UAP subject in a way. What's motivated this? It was an interview with Kirk McConnell, who was a retired Armed Services Committee staffer for the Senate, who apparently had was in on a lot of the interviews with these UAP witnesses that came forward. This was on the Jessie Michaels podcast, American Alchemy, which was a reference to this. I guess I could put a link in the description below if anybody wants to watch it. It's like over a 2 hour interview over a wide range of topics. And one in particular that occurs at the end of this video that kind of motivated me, and I sort of have a reaction to it because many other people involved in this subject. I mean, and I see this is just so common with people that are on the, let's say, the pro UFO as being real side of things. Richard Dolan, for example, and many others talk about this subject. And the subject essentially that they're getting into is the idea that I think is an exaggeration of the degree to which the program has succeeded in penetrating the alien technology. And the way they talk about it is as if, they've got this magic in their hands and they're just holding it back because of some economic reason or some political reason or whatever. And so that's what I want to discuss a little bit. And of course, the interview itself covers a lot of other things, which might be worth paying attention to, because you're dealing to a guy who has talked to firsthand witnesses, whose confidentiality is being maintained because they fear some form of retribution. And that retribution might be career retribution or something more, what does that say, kinetic? So at any rate, but the point is that nonetheless, he has a lot of information that I guess a lot of us don't know. And if there's anything really good he has, I guess he would be somewhat restricted of talking about if it was actually classified. Um, a lot of what he talks about is things you probably would know anyhow if you've studied the subject extensively. However, you do get a little bit of the perception of what various people's real attitudes on various topics are. It's a worth watching if you're really into the subject. But the part I really wanted to get into is the question that he raised at the end of the motivations for the secrecy and the idea that also that's kind of prevailing here that we actually, quote, have the technology. And that's where I have a little bit of a disagreement. Now, of course, like anybody else that isn't on the inside, you really don't know. And I'd suspect that most of the people, even that are on the inside to some degree, let's say Jake Barber, I mean, the exact extent of his knowledge is interesting. I mean, he has been involved in recovery operations, but more from a transportation and security point of view. He's certainly not at the facility where these things are ultimately examined. He's not one of the scientists involved or a manager of this program in any way. So, and those are the people who would really say know what's really been accomplished and not, I guess. So anyway, if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and you click the bell for notifications. Or you can also follow me on Rumble with the addresses in the description below. So yes, so here's where my point of disagreement is. To have a technology is one thing, or to have an artifact of the technology is quite the other. I mean, for example, if uh, uh, let's say an airplane were to go down in New Guinea or something, and some of the Aboriginal people sort of took possession of this airplane. You wouldn't say that they have the technology of aviation that's common in the world today, right? But they do have an airplane there, and and if we haven't come in and recovered it, I guess they have it until we have. See, so but they really don't have the ability to make an airplane or fly an airplane, or they simply have possession of an artifact. Or look at it this way: take the laptop computer I'm making this video on. Okay, Imagine that it was somehow, along with a charger and a manual on how to use it, were sent in a time portal back to a government scientist or a government related scientist, say John von Neumann, 1940. Um, and he got this thing and said, "What is it?" And, you know, looked at the book and it says how to turn on. In other words, he plugs it in, he gets it, he's got a computer and he can, bring up a spreadsheet, he can bring up a word processor, whatever, you know. And okay, he's got one of them. But does he have the technology of a computer being sold in the contemporary era? Not really. Could the government at the time duplicate it? Absolutely not. I mean, I mean, I mean, we couldn't duplicate this computer in 1980 or 1990. I mean, because the evolution of these processors and the memory chips and everything have just been so dramatic over the years. So the point I'm making is that to have the technology is something different than simply having artifacts of it. Even operational artifacts like the one I discussed in this hypothetical. So, okay, so we have recovered, it's been told, and I believe it's the case, downed UAPs, craft. We we um, we have all these different instances have been discussed in the literature, and we know all about this. We've had these witnesses that come forward. We have the testimony of what David Grush came up with as he investigated it and had 40 witnesses he's talked to that know various things about it, even though he hasn't personally seen a craft himself. He's told about it. Well, there is a book out was published by Dr. James Lukatsky and another author. In chapter 9 of this book, he discusses the fact that apparently, he was a leading scientist for the Defense Intelligence Agency back at the time of the OSOP program, Lou Elizondo and all that stuff, right? And before Lou, he's the one that brought Lou into the subject, okay? And he describes in chapter 9 of the book pretty clearly, and got this through a DOPSA review, probably because they didn't realize what he was saying. I think they interpreted what a statement is more of a question than a statement, or somehow they didn't read it well. At any rate, because when asked to talk about it, he'd say, "I can go no further than the text of the book." But he clearly describes a craft that they had that was suitable for aerodynamic flight, but didn't have any of the features that a normal aircraft would have. It didn't have engines and didn't have fuel tanks or anything that would, propulsion system that you would normally have on an aircraft. And then we ask the question, what was this for? And so the point I'm making, the point is, it seems to me like he's clearly saying he personally has seen one of them. And he also describes a little bit that it's the kind of things you would expect to have in a spacecraft or a space landing craft are not there. But we do know that they fly, don't we? So the point I'm making is we have it, but can we make one? Can we even fly the one we have? Now, that may be the more controversial topic. Have we actually managed to control one of these things? And that gets into a lot of these really controversial issues. So I'll take a neutral stance on that to say, well, I don't know for sure. But that gets into the area which has been raised by Jake Barber and his the Cold Heart interviews and so forth, which are also worthy of following if you haven't, because these are a major new development after David Grush, I would say. And the issue that's come up there is the issue which they're referring to as psionics. And this involves, yeah, we're getting into that kind of stuff there. Some kind of mental attributes, and apparently the people that they recruit usually are people from various like Native Americans or or foreign indigenous people that are into the kind of shamanship and whatever, that kind of thing. Of course, we have our own tradition of parapsychology research and so forth. I'm not going to get into how real it is, but it is conceivable that that might be how, if a person with the right skill could interface with the craft and activate it, um, maybe. I'm not saying yay or nay, but that's the only way I see we possibly would probably actually be able to fly one of them. Otherwise, I think not. But again, I'm not making a statement, yes or no, on that. But what I'm getting to is, therefore, I don't think we've mastered the technology for the same reason why the people in 1940 couldn't have mastered a computer that they've set back. Now, maybe they would be inspired to make a computer using vacuum tubes and the technologies of the time, certainly not the incredibly detailed, highly integrated circuitry that's in the thing I'm making this video on. Okay, nothing close to it. But and after all, John von Neumann was involved in early work on making computers, right? So, very brilliant man, actually, very accomplished individual in so many different areas, actually. But the point I'm getting to here is that I don't think that the recovered UFOs we have indicate we actually are able to duplicate this technology, or that we really have it as a usable thing. Okay, everything I've seen so far suggests in the program that we're really talking about, more than anything else, studying it and learning about it as much as we can. And the ability to truly duplicate it, I don't know. Like the video I mentioned does get into the issues of what we might call um, fringe science. I think is what the scientific community would view it as, and I think I kind of do too, actually. And that's things like the idea that Tesla had a different theory of electromagnetism that eluded the mainstream of science until this day. Um, I actually looked up some of this stuff to see what it was, and yeah, it's kind of a modified form of Maxwell's equation, which has a scalar field in it. And if the scalar field is constant, of course, it would they would divert back to the ordinary electromagnetic theory. Um, yeah, I'm skeptical because of all the incredible amount of electromagnetic equipment, radars and that we have. I think that any anomalous phenomena would have been discovered just because of using this equipment, and it would have been empirically discovered if it in fact exists in the way they're talking about. So I tend to think that although Tesla was very accomplished in many ways in terms of alternating current as a way of transmitting electricity, the Tesla coil, and a bunch of things he was working on, I think he also was a bit of, I would say, a little bit of an iconoclast, a genius, of course, but uh, the idea that he transcended all the real mainstream physicists and electrical engineers of all these decades, I doubt it. At any rate, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We can all take our guess and see if we're right. So what I'm trying to get to here is, no, I don't think that the power that these craft have, that the technology in these craft are so great that's why it's being held back or not being used more extensively. I think it's because of the lack of ability to do so. I mean, I think the thermonuclear bomb is a very powerful, potentially world-shattering technology. And were we too scared to utilize that one and go ahead and develop it and test it and make literally thousands and thousands of them? No. So I think the same thing is true here. If we could build a craft that could fly like the UAPs do and fly rings around any fighter plane that's powered by jet engines, I think we would be doing it. What is a little bit at the margins is, has there been any ability to develop anything that utilizes any of these characteristics? There's the whole alien reproduction vehicle issue. The McConnell, or what his name was, and do I have his name right? Maybe I got it wrong. But at any rate, the guy that committed suicide a while back, after talking about this for literally a long, long time. And I think it's kind of late in the game if he was terminated over what he was saying because, well, it was already so public and well known anyhow. So, again, I don't know. We'll leave that's another I don't know. I don't believe so, but I could be wrong, right? But ultimately, I think that what we're dealing with in the program is a study of the craft and probably biological specimens that may have been retrieved as well. And probably that we may have made some progress in understanding the biology a little bit, maybe. And there's a variety of other possibilities. I mean, this is a deep subject with many. Let's just put it this way: even the things that that I'm discovering now, many of them I didn't fully believe even a few months ago. Let's put it this way. So we have to be open-minded to things that will surprise us. Let's put it that way. But ultimately, but the idea though that's being presented by Kirk McConnell in this thing that's the fear of what these things would mean if we actually had them. I don't think so. A government that under the previous administration was really trying to get rid of the internal combustion engine. I don't think is trying to hold back a clean energy technology that would make petroleum obsolete. I think if they knew they had that technology, they'd be more than happy to push forward with it. So, anyhow, so I think that's basically that, and we'll just have to, you know, keep staying the subject. But I really do tend to think that kind of thinking, which is sort of prevalent, is really probably incorrect. So anyway, I'll be wrapping this up for now, and I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble as always, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. All for now.